minutes to approve. One, the regular session minutes from April 4th, and the other are the executive session minutes from April 4th. Has everybody had an opportunity to read those minutes? I'll take a motion from Rob, a second from Mike, to approve the regular minutes and executive session minutes of the school committee meeting of April 4th. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor, and the motion carries. The next item on our agenda are announcements, correspondence, and distributions. And I'll start with Bob.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I have a few announcements this evening. Some positive news. This is from the high school. They asked that I share this with the committee, with the public tonight. The following two students were nominated and elected to represent Milford High School at the annual Student Government Day at the State House on April 5th. It was Michael Tracy in 12th grade and Colin Brennan in 11th grade. Wanted to announce that on behalf of Milford High School. Also asked to share this information from the Massachusetts Basketball Coaches Association. I've enclosed a congratulatory letter to Michael Tracy on being named to the Massachusetts All-Academic Basketball Team, sponsored by the Massachusetts Basketball Coaches Association. He appreciated a great deal if we could forward this communication immediately to our school principal and so forth to the school community. So I want to congratulate Michael Tracy on that accomplishment as well. As far as a distribution this evening, at your seats, I've provided correspondence from our town council relative to the number of the policies that will be discussed on item 5 on the agenda, just so you know that they've been vetted by town council when we get to that, and you'll see what his suggested changes are to that. My final announcement this evening is this is with the change of election cycle. This is the final meeting that we have before the reorganization of the school committee, and wanted to just take a minute on behalf of the Milford School Committee to acknowledge our chairman, Patrick Collins, who worked all this year as chairman. So it's a little bit different because normally we reorganize at the same time, but this is the next meeting, so you'll still be with us. But thank you for your service as chairman of the school committee, and on behalf of the school committee, this is just a little something for appreciation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. I'd like to thank all the members of the committee. I think we've had a very productive year. We've really focused very strongly on curriculum and safety, and we've made real improvements to both over the course of the year. This committee has spoken with a single voice to give the superintendent instruction as it comes to finding the best manner and means to orchestrate our curriculum in our school buildings. And I think it's really had a very positive impact. And I think it's to the credit of all of us. And I want to thank everyone for working so hard this year and making this one of the best years that I've spent on the school committee.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Thank you. I'd like to also say, too, that you did a great job as chairman.
Thank you, Paul.
And I remember when, just 3 years ago, how fast that went by when you and I were both on the ballot.
Sure.
And I'll tell you right now, you've learned a lot. You've brought a lot to the committee. And I think the public and the residents should be proud of you like I am, and I know the rest of the committee is as well. And I says you were a good leader, and you did a fantastic job as chairman.
Thank you,
I
Paul.
congratulate you, and thanks so much for everything you do.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. But now that really is the least important announcement that I have to make tonight. The more important announcement that I have to make tonight is that, sadly, but also happily, the school committee loses our most senior member. He's been an institution on this committee for 6 years now. We're joined by his lovely wife, Cookie, tonight as well. She's in the audience. I think, Paul, it's funny, you talk about 3 years ago. I remember it's customary when you run for the school committee to call the existing members to introduce yourself. And I called Paul and I introduced myself. And he told me if there's anything that he can do for me or any questions that I had, to please ask him. And so the next day at lunch, I was down in Paul's office.
Yes, you were.
I was sitting across from him, asking him questions. You've been an enormous help and an enormous resource to me. You've been a gentleman from the day that I met you. I didn't know you before I got on the committee. You've been a perfect gentleman from that day through today. And I'm so glad that I've had an opportunity to spend this time with you and to hopefully earn your friendship.
You did. Thank you so much.
And I think more importantly, as a member of this committee, you're second to none in preparation when it comes to being ready for the meetings every day. And I have never seen a member bring more outside research or more new ideas into our meetings than you do. And really, I think it's absolutely wonderful. And I think the committee is so much better for having you serve on it for these past 6 years. And you'll be sorely missed, although I know it's not like you're going to leave town.
No,
so,
I'll be around. Thank you so much, though, Patrick.
Yeah, you'll be sorely missed, and I was so glad that I had an opportunity to serve with you. And I'd like
Same
to
here.
open it up to any other member that has any comments. Mike?
Mr.
Chairman, first I'd like to start by saying, Mr. Mazzucchelli, you have my tie on.
You know, yes.
That's really funny.
It took me many hours to get the irregular tags off, but
Oh,
I got
really? You know, we're great friends, Paul and I. You will be missed. I know you're only a phone call away. You know, people in the community need to understand that we do run for election, and we do it on our own. But the commitment that we make to this town is huge. And the hours that we give and we spend away from our families is enormous. And so tonight, Paul, the Milford School Committee gives you back to your family.
Thank you.
I don't know if they're gonna be happy about that, but we do. It's an honor to get elected, it's an honor to serve, but we spend hours and hours and hours away from our families. And tonight, we give you back,
Thank you.
all right?
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, you know, similarly to Patrick, you know, I really didn't have a chance to know you very well before I got on the committee, and you know, Paul, I think that the town of Milford is very fortunate to have a person of your caliber serving in the community. You know, you were among the first to reach your hand out to me and, you know, shake my hand and pull me in and say, Scotty, if there's anything you need, you don't hesitate. And, you know, I've taken you up on that a couple of times and calling you and pulling you aside and meeting, you know, talking to you, you know, before and after meetings. And, oh, Paul, what do you think about this?
Right.
You've always been forthcoming. You've always given great advice. And I think you've taken as I would always expect, you've taken this job very seriously, and you've done a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
And the students in the community of Milford are better for it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything you've done.
Very welcome.
Paul,
Robbie?
6 years. You know, thank you so much for your service on this committee. It certainly is a better and a stronger district for the service that you've lent to the committee and your advice. You know, not only for what you do for this committee, but for everything that you do for the town of Milford. You know, I greatly appreciate, as I know a lot of people do.
Thank you.
You know, there's certainly a couple of occasions that we did not see eye to eye, but I very much respect your passion and your conviction, and, you know, it's been great serving on this committee with you, and I wish you the best of luck in all your future endeavors.
Thanks. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Robbie. Thanks.
Now it's my turn. Best for last. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure to serve with you on this committee. You bring integrity to the town and a commitment to the town that a lot of people should really take a second notice of. And you come prepared to every meeting with your stack of papers. You always have done your homework. You're always prepared. And it's amazing. And you come up with ideas, and you don't just sit and listen, you interact. You're really a very passionate advocate for everything you do. And like I said, I've been honored to serve you on this committee, and the town should be very proud.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you. I'd also like to, excuse me, Bob.
Oh, before you make your
No, it's okay. I'll let you go first.
I also want, Paul, I've had a chance to know you since my days now with Andy Anderson, Memorial School, working as Andy's assistant.
That's right.
You then, just with the Board of Health, but over the years with mosquito control, you've advised us on that, working with a number of committees, most recently, you know, the Healthy Futures work that we've been doing, our Wellness Committee in town. I'm not sure if you'll still be doing that work or not in your capacity, but it's been a great run working with you in all those, and I hope we'll still continue to see you in town. You've been a tireless advocate for the schools, and as everyone else has already mentioned, you're always well prepared for meetings, coming in and sharing information and insight, and you've been a great supporter of education in our schools. I also wanted to, I was asked to share on behalf of Shining Star and the Family Network Project, just to share a message to express their gratitude to Paul, who's been a tireless advocate for early intervention in early childhood education. I'll always be grateful for supporting Milford families, and on behalf of Lucy Jenkins and Sarah Humiston, to thank you for your service to the town
You're
as well.
welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul, for
Thank
everything.
I was just going to say, too, is, you know, I'm humbled, you know, I really am, and I really thank everybody for their kind words. When I ran 6 years ago, you know, for the school committee, it seems like it's a blur. That's how fast it went by. But it's a privilege to serve on this board. Again, it's such a huge responsibility, and the huge trust that the public has in us. Like I always used to mention before, I mean, it's where we actually can guide and have a very major part of the education of our children in this town. Not only that, but we all know, during budget season, it's the major part of the budget. And the people are putting their trust in us, not only to help educate their children, but to spend their hard-earned tax dollar wisely. And I think that is the ultimate of trust. And I'm just gonna miss the closeness that we had with the planning of education for Milford's children, because there's a lot of great teaching going on in this school district. And there's a lot of great activities going on day after day, and the residents of Milford should be proud of what this school district has accomplished on a day-to-day basis. Just, working for the town for over 35 years, I realized that Milford is not only a well-run town, but it's a town of very, very good, compassionate, hardworking, and let's not forget, generous people. And we see that generosity at every town meeting when it comes to our school budget. The people in this town are very concerned about providing a superior education for our children. And we should be proud of that as well, and I know we don't let them down. I mean, this is a great committee, great administrators, great teachers. I just wanted to say too that, again, I'm humbled, and it was a great experience for me to be on this school committee, and I am going to miss it. And I work with some fantastic professional people. We all have our unique things that we can add to make this committee work as a team. And we have worked as a team. Sometimes, we had our bumps and bruises, like I was mentioning to Patrick, but we healed quickly. And we go on and we continue. We pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and we continue on and we work as a team. And it shows that. Again, this is a very good district, and I'm proud of it, and I know the residents of Milford are too. Great job to everybody else. Thank you, and I am. I'm going to miss you all. Thank you so much.
We have a very small token of our appreciation, Paul. Parting gift.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks. I also want to thank my wife too, Cookie, for putting up with those hours of research that I was doing until the wee hours of the morning, and then waking her up when I would go back to bed. But anyway, thank you so much.
She did all the research? I thought it was you.
Well, she helped me a lot too. She really did.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is our invitation to speak. Did any community member come to address the committee today? I don't see anyone. So I'll move to our next item, which is the Milford Community School Use Program Board of Directors reappointment. So every year, the school committee appoints a member to the community use programs, to their board of directors. There are three board of directors in the community use program. We're going to appoint one this year. There was only one candidate that applied. That's Mr. Ronald Creatia, who is a current member of the board of directors and shall continue to be a member of the board of directors with our approval. So with that, can I have a motion from Scott, a second from Mike, to approve Mr. Ronald Creatia to be on the board of directors of the Milford Community Youth School Program.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, does that mean that there are two vacancies? Two people didn't?
No, to my knowledge, we appoint one every year.
Oh, okay.
And there are three roles, so we're full, but there hasn't been any competition, I think, since I've been on the committee. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor? The motion carries. We want to thank Mr. Creatia for serving on that committee. We know that Len does a terrific job of community use. The next item on our agenda are the Milford Public School policy readings. And so we have 3 policies to go through. So I'm not sure how our 2 policy subcommittee members want to arrange that, but if you'd like to highlight some of the policy changes or why you made those, that way we can give the public some insight into what we're doing.
Christine, you want to start off?
Sure. Can I go from the bottom up? Because the facilities one
Sure.
is the one that I get a lot of questions on. And so we voted in the policy last year, and this is a restructuring of that policy to address some concerns and growing pains that have happened as the field has been in high demand. And so some of the things are to continue with the a low rate for the youth groups in town, but also to set some guidelines on when they need to have schedules in so that they get first dibs on that schedule, and then other groups can come in after. There's a tiered system. It's much more structured. We also have in that policy a fee structure, so outside groups have to pay more, as well as a site manager. For when outside groups come in, there will be someone on site to protect the property, to make sure it's left in good condition, and I think that's it.
The last piece I would just add is a couple things. One, to Christine's point, we did add some formalization, so we actually provided deadlines and windows
Right.
of time for applicants, and differentiating between the schools will have their window. They obviously get first priority. We identified a prioritization list. Then all Milford youth groups, youth organizations, so Milford Youth Lacrosse, Milford Hopedale Youth Soccer, Milford Cheerleading, and Milford Football would then have a window of time above and beyond any outside groups where they would be able to sign up for their times. We actually specifically broke it out by season, so there's a window of that time where they get that preferential opportunity to sign up. In addition, obviously, the preferential pricing that will continue with the previously agreed upon
Yes,
$25.
yeah.
The last piece that we did just, that was added sort of as well, we really thought about there's two primarily charitable organizations at this time that are using have asked and requested for use of this facility, not just in its current form with the new field and the new complex, which is beautiful, but even in the past, and that would be really our Special Olympics group, as well as the Relay for Life. So we wanted to ensure as a subcommittee that, and Bob provided some great language on that, that really affords them the opportunity to continue to use that, allows them to reserve that field. I believe the wording was.
A more flexible time.
Yeah, a more flexible timeframe, up to 1 year in advance. So it does give them that, there's a single events, there isn't a full season long, it's single events, it's typically a weekend. So it does allow them that opportunity as well. So, it's a moving target, that's for sure. I know Christine and I
Yeah.
and Bob spent a lot of time on this, and, it's fluid. We're gonna have to continue to revisit this and, and make tweaks to it as things go along. Obviously working in the best interest of the community, giving public access to a community field.
It's a good problem to have. People want to use our facilities. They're state-of-the-art, they're beautiful, but we just need to protect them,
Right.
for the schools so that they can always have it, as well as for the community. So it's their investment. So in the long run, it's the right thing to do.
And for the outside groups that were not within the Milford group, I do think we owe it to the taxpayers of Milford to make that fee in a more competitive light. We're still giving preferential treatment to Milford taxpayers and to those Milford groups because it is a community field. At this point, one of the things that's come to all of our attention is we have a lot of groups from really all over Massachusetts because of the cost of the field that were really just coming through and booking the field. And it was great that they wanted to use the facility, but they're booking the field just because it costs almost nothing. I mean, $25 an hour, where as we looked around, $175, $200 an hour up in Lancaster. I mean, those are the fields that other groups are looking at, and private organizations are just saying, hey, we'll just go to Milford, we'll just book up any time that's not used. It was causing some challenges, and quite frankly, it wasn't, in my opinion, responsible to the taxpayers of Milford. So.
And the only organization that ever would have bumping rights made clear is the high school. So if for
Correct.
some reason any of the high school sports had an event that something else was scheduled, they have the ability to do that. But once the schedules are out and they follow those guidelines, your schedule is set. And if you haven't, say, for example, I think spring, they had to have their schedules in by February 15th for the youth organizations.
I believe.
Once your schedule's in, you get all those dates, and then after we open it up to the outside community, because they're banging on the door as well. But it gives structure to Terry or whoever her successor is in the scheduling process. It made sense, and it was actually based on other communities that we had input from, so I think it's a good policy.
And also based on when we looked at that,
Yep.
at the books of specifically for this spring, we actually looked at the dates the youth organizations actually
Yeah.
submitted their request for schedules, and we put the window right in that time frame.
Right.
So that's specifically how we came about the dates. Obviously, we also have to be cognizant it's New England weather, and it's just as likely to be 70 degrees in February as it is to be 30 degrees in May. So we want to be cognizant of that and not push it too close, so that teams could make their schedules and do what they need to do. So.
Now, what about provisions for, I know that we've had some comments occasionally, there's some trash issues, some refuse issues. I know that there were some provisions, we talked about facility managers. Could you just
Right.
talk a little bit about that?
Sure, so we did put in a provision for any outside Milford group, is required to, essentially, they'll be charged a fee, I believe we
It's
proposed
minimal, yeah.
$15 per hour. Again, most organizations, they're only using it for an hour, so it's $15. Where they would have to pay a fee, where we would have a field administrator that's gonna be down there to ensure that it's inspected, as is, continues to be the responsibility of those groups, is to leave the field in as good, if not better, condition than what they left it. That field administrator for outside groups will be that person, sort of that liaison and enforcement person to just do the inspection.
From Milford, not from your organization.
Right, it is
Like
it is a
the
Milford
community
person.
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly.
Yeah, it's a Milford, it's somebody that actually
Milford.
works for us. It's
Yeah.
not somebody that they bring their own.
From
The Milford groups would not be burdened with that fee.
Unless we find a problem.
Right, and at this time, we're not proposing that the Milford groups be burdened with this fee. And they would be self-policing, as I know that, as a Milford Hopedale Youth Soccer is an example, part of what they do is they actually have a member of their board that's actually present at all games. So that's part of their self-policing, and they've, for the most part, based on any feedback we've received and observations, they've done a good job of that. Based on feedback we've received from multiple people, more often than not, some of the facilities issues we've had with trash and everything else, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, has come from the outside groups.
Not necessarily from anybody using the field.
Yeah,
Like, I think
right.
the outside groups are leaving the field okay. It's the open field policy that we have run into problems with. And one of the other part of having a facilities person there is that the nets and stuff won't be a free-for-all. Part of that, these big soccer nets or lacrosse nets are being pulled out onto the field by people that don't know how to use the equipment. So that to have the track or the field ruined because people want to use those big nets because it's community field, can't happen. So now with that facilities manager, we have to work out a way that they will be the ones to unlock the nets and have them brought out into the field. Because otherwise, the nets are all over the place, and it's not worth the risk. It's worth the,
And we are proposing the Milford community groups would have their own key.
they would have access. Right?
They would have access whenever they needed it. They obviously wouldn't be at the restriction of
Facilities.
a facilities person.
Well, Mr. Chair, I was gonna ask, the committee, the subcommittee, if, there's a provision, I was trying to find it before, maybe I missed it. Is there a provision for-profit groups who wanna use the facilities?
As far as?
Well, for instance, camps, like the sports camps
Yeah,
and whatnot.
there's a camp fee structure in there.
Yes, I saw that.
yeah.
But it says the Milford Youth Organizations, that would be like the Milford Football League or the Milford
Right,
Soccer
right.
League. Then it says Milford Adult Organizations, that could be like a,
Milford Adult Soccer
right.
League or something.
And there's also for all other groups.
Yeah.
Is
That's
that
the
what-
for-profit.
It's
that would
kind of
cover-
for-profit and non-profit outside groups we lumped
Okay.
together because it seemed like we were now getting down to like, oh, if you're here, like, how do we distinguish those? So,
So we don't have it discerned right now, between for-profit and non-for-profit. We've sort of lumped that into the other category.
Yeah.
Realizing that the provision has stayed in there that if it is a non-for-profit group, so I'll give the example of, again, Relay for Life or Special Olympics, and they come before us, the provision is still remained in there that it is at the discretion of the school committee to waive the fee completely if we see fit.
Okay, yeah, I was just gonna say, because like I said, the health department does issue permits for camps, be it sports camps or
Right,
any other
yeah.
recreational camps. And we've been doing that for the past several years. And one of the things I've noticed, like, there are a lot of for-profit camps that don't use our facility, but they'd use like the Portuguese club's facility,
Yeah.
or maybe the inside of the John Smith, whatnot. And like I said, they charge close to $250, $300 per camper, in their day camps. They don't sleep overnight, and like I said, that $200 fee, I can see the $200 fee when I was treasurer of the Pop Warner, that, is fair. But for someone who's charging $200, $300 per camper, that's peanuts. And it's just something to think about in the
Yeah.
future.
I think your question, Mr. Mazzucchelli, if I'm not correct, is when the field was originally done, I think the Franklin men's soccer, wasn't there something where the Franklin men's soccer group wanted to use it? And there was a question of what we were gonna charge them. And they were, for-profit, And we wanted to make sure that, not to hurt anybody, but we wanted to make sure that, they paid for the field
Right.
properly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the camp usage fee is much higher, so they will have access, they will have to pay more per hour.
Sure.
So,
Okay. Thank you.
Substantially so, not more than, I think 8 times what the in-town groups pay
Mhm.
for regular hourly use, and I think roughly double what the out-of-town groups
Right.
pay just for their regular usage. So it is substantially higher.
Okay.
But I agree with you, I hear what you're saying.
Mhm. Yeah, because like one camper could, probably,
Only 1 hour though,
yeah, right, I understand, yeah.
1 camper per hour, and
Mhm.
those camps are 8 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
Sure.
it
Okay.
is a substantial
Yeah, it
cost.
is.
Yeah, I hear
Mhm.
you, I'm with you.
Okay.
Just back to the site manager for a minute. Now, that's not a new addition. That's something that was on there from the beginning, correct?
not no, it wasn't on there.
But there was a requirement at the initial drawing that someone be down there?
From the organization, there was the expectation.
From their organization?
Right, it wasn't, outside, like our
Right,
community use supervisor. We didn't specifically have that as a fee structure either.
okay.
The original proposal had something in there. What was actually passed, going back to the vote, it was not included.
To have, that required a
cost.
site manager to be
cost.
there? At a cost, yeah. Because I recall, there were a few incidents that had been reported too, about trash and, the fact that you bring up, the nets, dragging things across that field, and, you shouldn't be wearing cleats and things across the track, and there's a rug that needs to be laid down. I guess, I think it's great that you guys have worked that in there like that. Does it make sense to establish an additional hour? And my thought is, they're gonna be there supervising while someone's there renting the field for 2 hours. But, when they're done, is it, okay, lock up, let's get out of here? Or do you keep them there another hour and really make sure the place is picked up, cleaned up, put back in order? And I guess I question, why don't we do that for the in-town teams as well? Again, it's a brand-new field, it costs a lot of money, and I think the upkeep and the maintenance of it, should be first and foremost. I mean, for $15 an hour, I don't think, you're soaking a Little League or an in-town team to pay someone that will be responsible for that. And, maybe we outline a little bit further the responsibilities of the site manager so that we could, make sure that we are being a little bit more specific in what their duties are while they're there.
I wonder maybe if it makes sense to write up a training guide for what we expect the in-town teams to do, and there needs to be someone who's certified that's actually read it, looked at it, knows where the carpets for the track are, knows not to drag those goalposts. I wonder if that's not something that might make sense. So at least we can say, look, these are your responsibilities as, as a member of the town, part of our community. This is what we need you to do when you're using this field, so you have to lay the carpet down, you can't drag those goalposts. Just so the information is free and available to everyone that's using it, and then if we have a problem, we can address it, but at least we're giving them the opportunity to just take care of it in a responsible manner.
I know that Milford Youth Lacrosse, when they did it last year, they had some kind of parent contract, and so I think it would be easy to institute, because when they pass in their schedules, there should be an opportunity for them to come and give the schedule, and also for us to give them something back that they need to sign or some kind of
Right.
guarantee that they'll be there. And, I mean, the youth groups are hard because as it's advertised as a community field, and, if you remember the uproar that was last year about fee structure, to add anything more than the $25, I think we have to take baby steps. But I think that, I think there needs to be an accountability for all the groups. But I haven't heard any bad feedback from youth groups or from organizations that have been on that field. Those groups have left it in good condition because they want to come back. They know the price. It's the free-for-all down there and it's a beautiful Saturday or a day off from school. That's where things are happening. I mean, I was down there one Friday afternoon and there's kids with bikes.
Yeah,
Like,
I see.
no,
No.
no, you can't be on our field with a bike. But, you know, the groups that are coming, that are, scheduling's a whole nother issue, but are coming to try and get the field and pay for the field, they wanna use the field, so they'll, you know, I have not seen or heard any feedback that those have been negative experiences, even with the youth groups. You know, they really wanna use the field, the
Oh,
youth
I
groups.
know, yeah.
They really do.
And that makes perfect sense. I just thought it was worth, you know, throwing it out there and just, you know,
Yeah,
again.
there's a way to do it, it's just we have to somehow put it in their contract or something like that.
I think just a rules for use.
Yeah.
Or, you know, guidelines for use, so that, similar to that, whether it's a
Yeah.
training manual or whether it's, you know, for the person that's going to be that field administrator, there certainly needs to be some level of training to show that stuff, but I do like.
Maybe the organization should have a turf field administrator, like the youth organization should have a dedicated
person's responsible
turf
for it, sure.
coordinator.
Yeah.
You know,
We
if,
can
I mean, the other
certainly
fields,
ask
you know,
about
they can move it down, but that's not a bad idea to put as part, youth organizations will need to have proof that someone in their organization has the classification of,
Sure, someone who's read the rules,
Someone
that's
that's-
So,
signed off
yeah,
on it,
so that
and
you
we
know, mhm.
yeah.
that's actually a good idea. We just kind of.
Yeah, I would agree with that, some level
Yeah.
of just
of a
accountability.
Like it's a role, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? You have a volunteer, you have, you know, someone in charge of the snack bar, someone can
Yeah.
be in charge of.
And it can be,
that complex.
I mean, the way that, like, I know, I only use soccer as an example, because it's the one I seem to spend all of my weekends with, is, you know, for the concession stands, it's, you know, they pick
Yeah.
a different team each week, and that's the parent, you know,
That's
that's
right.
who it is, it's a parent, it's a coach that's responsible for that, and again, they do have a board member, so that shouldn't be a problem. I would not be in favor of charging a youth fee for that at this time, as far as having an administrator. Again, thinking back to last year, not even the huge upgrade, just the vote that was taken last year and the commitment that we gave to these youth organizations was, I believe it was for 2 years that they would stay at the $25. At some point, will that change? $25 per hour. Will that at some point change? I don't know. When I was a kid, I think I paid 5 cents for milk in Milford Public Schools, and now it's certainly a lot more than that. So costs will ultimately change at some point. They have to.
It was 15.
It was 15 in high school. It was 5 when we were in elementary school. Yeah, it's certainly a lot more than that now. I mean, prices do change, and is that likely to happen with this? Yeah, it's going to.
School.
But yeah, we're not asking you to. What else when we went to school?
You gotta milk the cow.
So.
I mean, the word's out, you know,
Yeah.
on the field, that's just the conflict now.
Yeah, and the cost is right. So it's going to be $25 for the in-town groups at this time. I love the idea. I think it's giving that training and giving that oversight of that board member, I think, is going to be critical.
Yeah.
So.
I'm okay with the revisions that have been made.
Yep.
And like you said, you know, it is still fairly new. People are gonna be a little bit more cognizant because it is so new, but, you know, as the years go on, I think it's something we do wanna keep an eye on.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would agree. This will need to continue to be, in my opinion, a very fluid policy that is going to require ongoing tweaks, as all of our policies do. There's, you know, they're going to become dated. We need to change it. So.
I didn't see any
I have changes
provisions.
to this already.
I didn't see any provisions for Special Olympics or Race for Life. Were they in there, or did I just miss them?
That's language we just discussed today, so
Okay.
that's the language that Scott mentioned where they have up to a year.
Okay.
You know, they can schedule up to a year, where the other groups, we tried to box in a little bit more so that everyone has a little bit of responsibility. You want your schedule, you wanna have the spring season, great. Get it to us by February 15th and you have your schedule.
Because I think our thought behind it was, we really only have 2 groups at this point. Will that change at some point? Yes, and again, goes back to the fluidity of the policy. But we have really 2 groups. They're single events each. It's not a full season with practices and Monday through Friday and all day Saturday and all day Sunday, and it's sun up to sundown and sometimes far past that. We did want to make sure that we gave those groups that opportunity.
Absolutely.
I mean, Relay for Life is an example. You know, I was talking with Bob. He said, "Listen, I know the person that does that, and they can, if we want, they've got the next 5 years worth of dates that they already know when it is. So it's one weekend. It's overnight, and they're." You know, listen, there's been no greater supporter of the Special Olympics and Relay for Life than the Milford Public Schools and certainly the Milford School Committee, and I certainly would never want anything to change with that. That's those are critical components. So I do think that's language I knew that we'd kind of talked briefly about today. Certainly would like to make sure that that's included within this language.
I mean, I'm gonna follow the policy subcommittee's lead and trust your judgment. There was nothing in here that I took issue with. I would like to see the addition of, the training of someone, who's gone through the training that we,
Organization, yeah.
which
You
makes
can add
sense. It
that
makes a
in.
lot of
Yeah,
sense. It's very
it does.
easy, it's clean, we know what the rules are, it's easy to tell them, and then we're done. And that's gonna give me a lot of peace of mind, at least.
Absolutely, absolutely. The organizations are great, they wanna use a facility,
Right.
I'm not really worried about the organizations that are coming.
I think it's key, Mr. Chairman, that people that are using the facility understand that, we're gonna treat it the same way as we do as Town Hall.
Right.
The Senior Center.
Right.
Memorial
Yeah.
Hall, Pheno Field, Town Park.
Right.
We want you to use them, we want you to respect them, and we want you to keep them clean, and we want you to come back.
Right.
They're your facilities, that's the thing that people lose sight of, is it's really your facility. Take care of it.
Right.
We don't want you not to use the facility,
Right.
It's just the
Absolutely.
cost.
Yeah.
This isn't a forever facility. You can't just
Yeah.
throw a grass seat on it.
No.
So
Right.
we want in 10 years to not have to go to the town and be like, hey,
Right.
guess what we need,
Yeah, I
we
was down
want-
there Sunday night at 7:00, and there was people out on the field. That's what you want.
Absolutely.
That's what we built it for.
Absolutely. We don't wanna see the bikes in the field.
Yeah,
though.
we didn't
No,
build
no
it.
bikes.
Yeah,
And-
cars.
They can go
and
play
no-
all they
and
want,
no
they just can't
nets.
drive out.
Unless you're
Yeah.
a group that is doing it, you have to have a site manager use those, bring those nets out
But we
there.
didn't build it to close the gates and let nobody
Right.
on, and just
No.
stand outside the fence and look in and say, oh, what a beautiful facility.
And
We
what-
wanna
and-
see people using it.
And I will tell you, to that point, Christine and I were reading through, and, I have to I know she's a little under the weather tonight, so I wanna make sure that I recognize Kathy Perry really did a phenomenal job with reaching out to area towns. I will tell you, there are neighboring towns that touch Milford, that when we asked them, what's your fields policy, they said, we don't let anybody use it.
Right.
And I can tell you, it wasn't built on donations. It was built with tax money.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
their policy was, we don't let anybody use it, only the schools.
Yeah.
So and that was clearly
Right.
not the
That's
direction
not
we
right.
wanted to go.
No. But
Nor should we ever.
We'll do what we need to protect those
Yeah.
fields, so,
And we owe it to the taxpayers.
yeah, it's.
Right.
We owe it to those that paid for it, so.
Town waited, the high school and students waited too long for that kind of facility.
Agreed.
So I can work up these proposed changes. I have a user guide drafted by the athletic director,
Right.
and have him work on that with, also adding the site manager, the youth organizations to designate someone as their site manager and add that to the application. And then I can get that back to the next agenda. I give it to the policy subcommittee to review ahead of time, make sure it's agreeable, and then we can put it on the next, for a second reading with those amendments for the next meeting. if
Can you
wanted.
also put on there the lights, because, you can, one of the beauties of the field, and especially as it gets darker earlier, is that we have the lights, but who's in charge, and we need to have that somehow written in there, so that people aren't calling Rich, or people aren't, there needs to be someone that, it's very easy to do, but it needs to be when you apply for the lights. Because people get down the field like, why aren't the lights on? Are the lights coming on?
Okay,
They can only be on for groups of pay.
got it.
And in the nets, I don't think I saw that in anything, have to be locked. The high school's equipment is,
That actually came up at the senior center. Someone asked, Paul Pellegrini was running for Parks Commissioner, somebody asked him about those nets and what he's gonna do to make sure that they're not being dragged around and they're secured properly.
yeah, and I noticed that too, just from, people that have asked to use the field, like, do you need nets? Oh, okay, well, I would have to call someone to have them do
Right.
it, but then I went down there one afternoon and there were just kids running around and they moved the nets, and I'm just like, oh my God,
Right.
they're up there,
Right.
And I would never, they're huge, heavy nets.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put together some language. We could probably avoid having it's hard to coordinate schedules in between now and the next 2 weeks. So I can just draft this
Sure.
up and get it to you for feedback and we'll go from there.
Good.
Sounds good, great. Thanks.
Which policy did you wanna treat next?
I think just the security camera policy, the main things was, it's essentially language, and it was something that we brought up during a previous, full meeting of, we've got cameras, you walk into any building, anywhere, we're just putting up some, sort of signage that says, we're appropriate as Attorney Moody had really proposed to us. Where appropriate by school officials, maybe utilized in other policies, just something that says, this area is monitored by film, and there's some language that goes along with that. I'm just taking a look here.
The internet one is.
The internet one is
trying to keep up with the times.
Yeah, and that's just keeping up.
It really is trying to stay ahead of the curve and the students. so that everyone's protected, and yet you have access to the technology that you need.
Yeah,
It's really hard,
If you
moving
believe it or
time.
not, one of the industry standards for an internet security policy is to update every 6 months. That's,
I can see that, absolutely. And the
Yeah.
kids are moving faster than
Way
Then
faster
even-
than that.
anyone else, so it makes perfect sense to have it done that. I mean, we should review at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, or like somehow in between, just a regular schedule, because,
Mr. Chairman, what was the other night, the selectmen's meeting? Did they appoint a task force for the town, or they're thinking of, because I was gonna make a recommendation that we probably should have a subcommittee, not that you
Yeah.
want another subcommittee, but I think the schools should have a subcommittee for technology.
yeah, they agreed that they were going to appoint it, to create a committee. They haven't created that committee yet. What I'll do is reach out to the Board of Selectmen, and I will ask them what their timeline is. And then whoever the next chairman of this committee is can create a subcommittee for it, and we can review it, because I think that's a great idea. Mike, I really do.
Yeah.
So that everybody's not all over the place, and I'd be more than happy to, I reached out to Vinnie Kizo, he is more than willing, and, Vinnie's great, to-
Absolutely.
Yeah, to, put a committee together for the schools, to make sure that we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
idea.
You saw the presentation that we saw, is that, we need to get everything streamlined.
we need a
you know.
plan.
Yeah, we need a
we need a
plan.
plan.
Need a plan.
That's exactly what we need,
Yeah, we need a plan.
And honestly, and you've heard me say it, from the safety and security, getting a group of people together, look what we've done in a short amount of time,
Right.
Right.
All right, from the Milford Police, it's just amazing, yeah,
I'll reach out to the Board of Selectmen tomorrow.
thank you.
And then, it looks like, Jerry had some, not, some significant but not, overly burdensome changes that he wanted to make, so obviously these need to be incorporated as well, so it
Yeah.
would
Right.
probably not be appropriate to vote on this policy now. I didn't see any other glaring issues
No.
that I wanted to talk about. Did anybody else have any questions or comments?
I was just going to ask Bob, do you have an idea of how many incidents involving the internet, either by staff or by students, that have occurred over the past year?
Of misuse?
Of misuse, yeah.
I don't. I can look into that and try to find out. Well, it's a great question. I'm not sure over the years how that's been monitored. I know we have, the content filters in place, but there's certainly ways around that. So I'll find out and get back to the committee on that as to how we're actually monitoring that going
Yeah,
forward.
I
Because
mean,
it does
I'm
say
curious
here,
as to,
under the chief technology officer is what it says in here, but what I don't know from him is what specifically is he doing to ensure that it's safeguarded. I'll have to follow up and get back to you.
I think what's important too is that, I don't want the public to think that the Milford Public Schools are, on their own in this. I was in a meeting today all day at Chrysler Corporation, a major corporation like Chrysler, they're dealing with it every day. Every day, how are they controlling their internet activity, how are they controlling their IT departments, how are they controlling their, the technology, and they struggle with it.
Yeah.
So it's not something just to the Milford Public Schools, but it's something we can't turn a blind eye to. We need to, get in the forefront of it and work on it.
What's difficult too is with like the phones, you can, even if you have the internet that's, filtered, once you go on through your telephone network, there's no, and if we block it, there is ways you can actually block it in the whole school, but when we do that, we block it for everybody, including myself, all the administrators, and that kind of is counterproductive to the ability to call 911 in an emergency.
Right.
If we do that, so there's a trade-off. So that's a really, it's harder to manage now, I think, than it was 10 years ago. But I'll certainly get you an answer as to
Yeah,
what we're doing
agreed, and that's why I think, if we have an idea of, is there misuse going on? And if so, what is it? And it's that you look at to either incorporate into the policy or, come up with
I can,
other policies around, well, again, it's gonna depend on what the misuse is and how often. I think it may or may not be occurring, so.
I can give you a very recent example. I was talking to a teacher who was having trouble logging on to the wireless internet in her room. And so she got bounced out and she didn't have the code. And so she told the student, well, I don't have the code to get back on. And they said, oh, well, I have the code. I mean, most of us have the code. Because someone had hacked in, found out what the code was, and then distributed it amongst all of their friends, which of course branches out. And,
Oh, that's.
within a week and a half of the school building has the code to the internet. And, you
Except
know,
the teachers.
yeah, except for the teachers who are excluded, who don't know how to hack into the system and find out what the code is. So, you know, I mean, to your point, it's absolutely, it happens, and it's very difficult to monitor. I mean, in a policy like this, and we talk about the facilities policy having to remain fluid, I mean, this is even more fluid. You know, by the time we adopt the policy, it's gonna be obsolete. You know, it's almost like, if you remember back when computers were first coming out, if you bought one, you know, a month and a half later, it was completely obsolete and it couldn't even run half of the programs. You know, it's not quite that bad now, but it's pretty close.
It moves, and, yeah, and this is definitely, I would say, a policy that, to Christine's point, I would say beginning of the school year and then probably right after Christmas break.
Yeah.
Probably the right timing to at least
Probably like, yeah,
sit
after
down and
Christmas,
review it.
kids, you know, that's a big time of year, everything gets new.
Yeah.
Try a lot of
Well, that's
things.
also when all the new technology's
That's what I
out
mean,
too.
February,
Yeah.
March, we'll revisit and see what they've brought up. Definitely.
Right,
You know, I think-
what did everybody get for Christmas this year? All right,
Exactly.
good, give them to
But I
me.
think at the high school, it's, now that I have someone in high school versus the middle schools, it's, a little more lenient in the cell phone access and usage. And I remember the first time, I'd be like, what are you talking to me during school for?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like, whereas the middle school, it's shoved in their locker, you don't hear from them. You know, even in 8th grade, I never heard from them. But in the high school, it's a very different ballgame. And, so I think there's issues at different levels. I think it's more concerning the use policy and internet at the high school than the middle. Not to
Yeah.
say that it's not happening there, but it's not like it is at the high school. And very widespread. Kids just bring their phones to class. It's just what they're doing. And you can't leave them at the door because you can't put everybody's phone in a bucket because everyone has the same phone and someone's gonna take someone's phone. So it's a very different problem.
And of course, it's a push at the same time in districts to use this sort of BYOD, the
Yes.
concept of bringing
Exactly.
your own devices for instruction. Well, how do you
Uh-huh.
manage that when it's, so there's a lot at play here that makes it very complicated.
It's happened in my son's class before he had a smartphone. He was like, oh, we need to go. I'm like, well, how did you? Oh, someone else's, people went on phones. I'm like, what?
It's a great
You know,
educational tool, but it's
It's
gonna be
amazing, but how do you manage it?
controlled and managed,
With
right.
14, 15, I mean, they're kids.
I
They
know,
still
yeah.
don't make all the right decisions.
That's right.
You're being very
Huh?
generous, Christine.
What's that?
You're being very generous.
Well, my kid makes all the right decisions. Scary.
So none of
So
these
we can
pol-
gather
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean, this was great. These are, you know, two of the policies are extremely important. And it seems like we got some good feedback. I don't wanna rush any member. If any other member has comments on the policies as they stand, I think we have some great revisions.
No manila folder tonight.
Yeah,
You guys worked hard
All
on it.
your
You did a
notes.
good job.
there's all your notes. Oh,
He's been here, what, a couple of meetings longer than most?
Yeah, two meetings longer.
But who's counting?
I'll get your bonus.
The next item on our agenda is the report of the superintendent of schools. Bob?
Just a quick update this evening on the Woodland School Building Project. As we did now a standing item on the agenda. On Monday, the 29th, I'll be traveling, you going with us up to New Hampshire?
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna
Okay.
try.
Anyone from the school committee certainly is invited to, if you have the time, to do that on Monday. We're going to see 3 elementary schools that were built by HMFH architects in Concord, New Hampshire, in and around Concord, New Hampshire. So there's about 9 or so of us going from the school building committee in town, along with architects and so forth. So we'll all meet up in New Hampshire and spend the day up there seeing those facilities. I'm not sure if your dad was coming or not on that trip.
Showed me
Yeah.
the spreadsheet the other day. He's so
Okay.
excited.
It's yeah,
He's really impressed.
it's great. We have.
It's a very exciting project.
It's a very exciting project, and we are meeting all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, all the time. The school building committee meetings are separate, but we've been having working group meetings every week for 2, 3, 4 hours at a time to put together the educational program for Woodland School, and getting all the voices, as I mentioned at the last meeting, the 2 meetings ago. So we know what the cafeteria facilities are, what the PE needs are, understanding that we're moving a grade 5 into a grade 3, 4 school building, and the needs there in terms of number of stations. And again, just to restate what I said before about the team that we've selected, HMFH is great, and working with Jocelyn Lesser Associates has been outstanding. They're on top of their game. So we're excited to see this trip. This is HMFH's work and that they've done, and their trophy work that's been regarded very highly in the architectural world. So we'll go check it out. So if you have a chance to see that on Monday, if you have an interest, just shoot me an email. Let me know. I'll give you the details.
Just to validate what Bob just said, couple of weeks ago, my wife went to a meeting on the new school building. She's a CTL, so she was working on the 5th grade curriculum because that's middle school curriculum. So she spent 2 hours at Woodland in a meeting, and then she got home and took the kids, and I went and spent 2 hours at a school building meeting, and Bob was at both. So just to validate the fact that we were in meetings all the time
All
about
the
this, it's
time.
unbelievable.
That's right. It's, and unlike other meetings, unlike other schools we've done before, it just seems like it's really, this team is getting the job done. So, not that we haven't before, but it's just it's a tight timeline. It's different. But if there's any questions that you have, and again, I don't want to belabor the conversation, but if you have questions, I'm happy to try to answer them right now if you have any questions on the project. But it's going along very well, and certainly on time. I think I'm taking on Kathy's role tonight, too.
Yeah, so the next item on our agenda is the report of the assistant superintendent. Kathy's not well tonight, so she isn't with us. So I'll start with the warrants. We do have 5 warrants tonight. So the first warrant is in the amount of $13,823.69. If I can have a motion from Rob, second from Mike, to approve the warrant. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. The motion carries. Our second warrant is in the amount of $11,651.15. If I could have a motion from Scott, second from Christine. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. The motion carries. Our third warrant is in the amount of $26,048.28. If I could have a motion from Christine, second from Mike. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. The motion carries. The fourth warrant is in the amount of $206,876.99. If I could have a motion from Scott, second from Rob, to approve the warrant. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. The motion carries. And last but not least, I have a warrant in the amount of $748,287.16. And Paul, since this is your last meeting, I'll take a motion from Paul, second from Scott. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. Motion carries.
Go bigger, go home, Paul, I'm telling you. Ouch.
And then we do have a personnel update. I do not believe that these require any votes. We do have to vote, we don't, do we vote on the professional agenda for development, Bob?
No, we just
No, we
need to vote just the jury duty we have.
Yeah. And we have no jury duty. I see none.
No, I'm, well, on my copy, I have Barbara Tominski.
Oh, oh, there it is. Gotcha. So we do have one,
They
one
love
of our staff
educators.
members going up for jury duty. Motion from Mike, second from Scott to approve jury duty. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous in favor. The motion does carry. And did you want to touch very briefly, Bob, on the budget update, or did you want to leave that for Kathy?
I'll leave that for Kathy.
Okay. We were,
One question on the budget though. I had asked last time for a projection budget. Have we gotten that, so that we can say, all right, this year, these are our costs. Next year, with the contracts in place, those are our costs we have to put aside. Have you guys worked on that? We
Oh,
haven't
right.
seen a budget like that, but I think the FinCom wants that. And I think it's important for us every year, and we haven't had that.
Okay,
We
I'll
may
follow.
have it in a discussion, but I think a formal projection is going to
Let
pay off.
me follow up with on
Because
that
we
with
have
Kathy.
all those contracts we're in the middle of, and we're bound by them.
That's right, yeah, I'll follow up with Kathy on that.
the next item on our agenda would normally be a subcommittee update, but we did spend a substantial amount of time on our policy. And then security, we're going to wait?
We have not met.
Okay. So the next item on our agenda is new business. Does any member bring new business? The next item on our agenda is old business. Does any member bring old business? The only piece of old business I want to bring up, I just want to assure you, Paul, that I'm going to make sure that I'm going to stay on top of that insurance policy for the catastrophic injury. We're not going to let that slide. So I know it's been hard. It was a great idea that you brought up, and we're not going to let that die.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, any other memorable business? I apologize. We have no executive session this evening. So we will now adjourn. I'll take a motion from Paul, second from Christine to adjourn the meeting. All opposed, in favor, opposed, unanimous, the motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.